Welcome back, Purrfect Peeps, to Purrfect.dev. Today we are talking all about side project hustle with Brad Garropy. What's up, Brad?
Hey everyone.
How's it going?
Pretty good. It's been a hectic morning. Just a lot of things going on today.
Yeah, I feel you.
It's coming out of like that turn out of pandemic mode, and then everyone's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna get sick normally," and like all of this mess, and school is ending, and it's like, holy smokes.
Yep. And then the beginning of summer too. Like you want to go out and do more things, so you're trying to be more active, and yeah, life's getting busy.
Yeah, all for the good. That's the great part.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So Brad is a lead front-end developer at Adobe. He's a content creator on Twitch and YouTube, a new co-host of WebDev Weekly podcast, and a side project connoisseur. So that's the fun part, because we're going to talk all about side projects.
Yeah, and actually, I use that little phrase connoisseur on like the homepage of my website because I needed a way to say like I just do a lot of random things, and so side project connoisseur came out of nowhere, and I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's what we're here for. Side project hustle. I love it.
For sure.
So how did you get your start in web development?
It's weird. I don't have a traditional web development background. I was a firmware engineer at Dell for like 10 years. And towards the end of my time there, I started doing more DevOps with Python. And I had this problem I needed to solve where people were pushing commits and we had our own custom like Git workflow, and they needed a way to understand where their commit was in the process. Is it being tested? Is it being staged? All these things. And so I wanted to learn like HTML and CSS to try to find a way to visualize this and generate those, web pages with Python. It was a terrible idea, like terrible execution of the idea, honestly. But that's what kind of lit that or sparked that fire, where I was like, oh, I can do something that has a URL that I can share and copy and paste and people can see it. And so I spent about 2 years kind of just teaching myself web development and then trying to find that first job, that first company that would really take me in as a web developer. And Adobe was the one. They saw potential in what I had, created in my portfolio, and they were the ones who kind of took that risk. And I think it totally paid off for them and for me because things have been going like really, really great there.
So you self-taught yourself. You don't have a traditional computer science background or anything?
I'm an electrical engineer by education from the University of Texas. And so I took maybe like one programming course, but like logic is at the core of any engineering degree. So I was able to take that and apply it to learning programming.
That's awesome.
I started out in engineering. Did you at least go through like C or Basic or something like that when you were going through school?
It was Java for us, and then we did a microcontrollers class, which was also pretty cool. But those were the only two classes that had any kind of programming.
Very cool. That's awesome that you were able to kind of spin out just out of necessity, basically, and realize what you wanted to do next. It's really cool.
Yeah. I had a similar experience with HTML and CSS. Once I started building it and saw that I could do these things just by writing something, I could visualize something else. And I had that same passionate, like, this is what I want to do. I started with graphic design. And then once I was like, oh, I can build stuff too. It was just incredible and expanded. So did you build side projects to build up your portfolio to get the job at Adobe? You just started building things and build out your portfolio?
It was very much a necessity, right? Because if I had shown only my resume to web development companies, they would say, you don't really have a place here. You don't really have a position here because that's not what you do. So I had to kind of make it what I did unofficially. So that's where I built my blog. I made a few side projects. And then every interview I went on, they would ask me front-end questions. And so I would take those questions or challenges and just build them out more fully and put them on my GitHub. Put them, out there in the open. And so that was how I created like a repertoire of things.
What were some of the different projects that you worked on? Like, was there a variety or a certain specific lane that you went down?
I was probably all over the place. When I very first started learning web development, I didn't really understand how the browser worked or HTTP requests work. So the first thing I actually built was a Node server, like not using Express, just using Node APIs. How do you handle an incoming HTTP request? So I understood what happened on the other side of the browser. And so once I kind of understood that life cycle, I was able to jump into more things. I think my first legit project was like the blog. You know, you make your personal website. It was Gatsby. I think I did like a Jekyll version of it too, but the blog was the first real thing. And then I did a couple other just front end only projects, like making cool sliders for, like marketing websites, or just those interview questions that I got asked that were fairly self-contained, front end only type projects.
And so
It's been a minute.
Go ahead.
I would say it's been a minute for me, but kind of going back through that whole like learning JavaScript thing and HTML, was that kind of challenging to step into that world, especially if you came like out of Java and object oriented and things like that?
Yeah, like HTML and CSS were pretty easy. Don't get me wrong, there's a level of CSS. There's like a wall you have to break through to actually understand it. But setting some colors and stuff was no problem. Yeah. But like JavaScript was tough for me because I didn't understand where it executed. It took me a while to actually realize that the browser is an execution environment for JavaScript, and so is the server. So that's why building that Node server really helped me. It understood what JavaScript executed where and where HTML was generated. The difference between, like client-side rendering, server-side rendering, that was like a big, hard concept to get around. And then once I kind of finished the vanilla JavaScript, I moved into frameworks. And so React was the first thing. And just state-driven UI, the idea of state and how that, what is it? UI is a function of state. That whole idea took a lot of time to wrap my head around. And now I think it makes sense. And it even goes so far as to say your UI is not just a function of state on the client side, it's also a function of state on the server side. And those two states should be managed separately. You can just go deeper down that rabbit hole and like make different verticals of the things you need to keep track of in order to generate a web page.
I think it took me forever, just thinking back on like how the like cycle works, and everyone kept talking about like promises and it wouldn't run like directly, and I'm like, I am so lost. I don't understand what you're saying. Like, why does it not just wait for it to complete? What are we like waiting for? What's happening? And once you start to learn like how that actual cycle works and things like that, it was pretty cool after that. So do you find as though you want to learn more frameworks, being somewhat new kind of down that journey still?
I've built some stuff with Vue and I've built some stuff with Svelte. And then of course I've went crazy on the React framework side, whether it be Gatsby or Next or, whatever comes out. Once I understood React, it was a whole lot easier to move into things like Vue, things like Svelte. I've never touched Angular though, to be honest. But I found that Vue was pretty easy. Vue was pretty friendly. Svelte, on the other hand, while it felt a lot like Vue, I thought state management in Svelte was different than the React paradigm. So I actually struggled with that a little bit. But honestly, it was because I probably used Svelte without SvelteKit or Sapper at the time. I was trying to make like a web app with Svelte only, because I find that that's the best way for me to learn things. If I learn from the bottom up and I kind of hit those problems where you need to bring in libraries or frameworks, it helps me understand that problem that the thing actually solves.
That might be a good transition too, because that's what you built your app Muphy with, right? Or Murph.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with like working out or CrossFit or anything, the Murph is this workout that you do in CrossFit every Memorial Day. So actually it just came up. So every Memorial Day you do, you run a mile and then you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and then you run a mile. So I'm
tired just listening to that.
I had gotten into that workout for a few years in a row, and I needed a better way to track it, because when you're like running around and panting, you don't know what set you're on, and you can't count your reps right. Yeah, so here's Murph. It's a Svelte application that's on the Google Play Store. So it's just a PWA at the end of the day, and you can put it on the Google Play Store, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started this as like a side project to learn Svelte, and next thing you know, I realized I could actually make it into a thing, charge money for it, and put it on the Play Store, and I did it. And it was like such a big learning experience, and it was, definitely difficult at times.
That's so incredible that you can just get your feet wet, though, and learning a completely new framework and build something and make money off of it. That's what kind of the joy of like side projects and things like this is, because we can just do all of that stuff. Going back a little bit, though, so doing all of these side projects and getting your job at Adobe, they saw that in you, and you kind of fast tracked a little bit to lead front end engineer, right? So what did they see and what did you do there, and how did you make that transition?
It was kind of like a fake it till you make it situation. Like I'm very, when I get onto a topic that I really like, for instance, programming, when the web development bug hit, I just started consuming everything. It was reading blog posts, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, and it was like this new obsession. So I was very, very up on latest technology. And as soon as I walked in the door at Adobe, I kind of tried to let people know that, like, I may be new to web development, but I'm not new to engineering and programming. And I do know a lot about what's going on in the web development space. And so I want to share it. And it was literally that act of sharing and jumping onto tasks and saying, ooh, I know a technology or a thing that can handle the problem we're trying to solve, that put me in a spot where people just tended to look at me when they needed a problem solved. And so because of that, I wound up with a promotion pretty early on, like only after a year being there, that just kind of recognized that, hey, Brad's like a go-getter, or like a guy who can get things done.
That's fantastic that they recognize that and saw that learning in you. I love, that's kind of the aspect of learning in public too, is like if you put stuff out there, like people are going to recognize you for that. It's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, then that benefit goes so many ways. Like when you're learning in public, you can also ask for help if you don't know something or need assistance. At the same time, you can teach people. And at the same time, you kind of get recognized as knowing what you're talking about just because you talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you find, like, I guess maybe motivation's the wrong word, right word, but like to go to the next thing, to learn the next thing? Is it just you hear about something, you get excited, and so like all of a sudden a side project comes out of it?
Yeah, I always say when I want to learn something new, I need to have a purpose for it. So I wouldn't have just sat down and like learned Svelte just to learn Svelte. I had this idea for an app, and I said, oh, this is a chance to learn something new. I do kind of have a hard time just saying I'm going to learn the next thing because it's the next thing. I'm kind of in one of those lulls right now, to be honest, where, other parts of life or other projects are taking a lot of my time. And so I'm not learning a whole bunch of new stuff. But one thing I did learn recently was Vite, or I kind of like compared the new bundlers and build tools like ESBuild, Vite, and Snowpack, and I compared them against Webpack. And it's not a huge thing to learn, but it was like small enough in scope where I was like, I can bite off that amount to chew. I had to spin up like this quick template repo, and I realized it was slow to build. And so I just swapped out the bundler, and that was my little foray into like the next thing to learn.
Yeah, that's how you stay current too as a developer now. I mean, everything changes so fast, and everybody's jumping on the Snowpack train. So, I mean, you're kind of moving in the right direction, and you just take those small steps along the way when you can.
Yeah, and Scott and Wes say this on Syntax. They're like, if you hear us mention something 4 or 5 times, then you go jump on it. There's been enough buzz around ES module first build tools that it's time to take a look. And they're fast. Holy cow, they're fast. Let me tell you.
I know, kind of talking about some of your side projects and what you're focused on. It's a good segue to maybe chat a minute about why you decided to get into podcasting. So you have your new podcast, WebDev Weekly. What are you guys covering on there, and why did you start it?
WebDev Weekly kind of came out of nowhere. I had a goal this year to start a podcast, but I didn't know with who or what it was going to be, if it was just going to be me solo, if it was going to be me interviewing guests. But after I started tweeting about it a little bit and kind of dropping hints that I wanted to do one, somebody on Twitter approached me, and this was Richard Gottlieb, and he and I just kind of started chatting and said, you know what, let's try this. We'll get to know each other. We'll come up with a brand. We'll try to record one or two, see how it goes. And right now we've got 4 or 5 episodes out.
Yeah.
We release on Fridays, so streaming is all about your personality is today's episode. And we have like 10 or 12 more in the backlog that we've already recorded, and we're going strong. So it just kind of fell into place. Now, why I wanted to make a podcast, to be honest, I wanted to talk about web development more. I think it's fun, and I like meeting people in the community, and I also want to use it as a vehicle to get people I look up to or aspire to like come on and say hi and have that official introduction, and I get to pick their brain for 30 minutes or an hour. Like, it's a perfect excuse to do that.
I feel the exact same way about this. It's been just an amazing experience, just who you get to meet and talk to and listen to. Even if no one listened to the podcast, I get that experience, and I'm passionate about like talking and hearing about it. So yeah, I completely understand.
Absolutely. Y'all have had some like A+ guests for sure.
So apparently social media helped you like get your help. Has it helped you also in your career and going along, obviously with the podcast, but with other things too?
Social media has been like just really, really positive for me, especially Twitter, especially web development Twitter, and then also Discord has been really good.
Same.
There's that whole sphere, like you learn about somebody on Twitter, you see their stream on Twitch, you join their Discord, and it's like this circle that never ends and
keeps growing.
Yeah,
right?
It does. Yeah. So like there's so many people that I've met online. I mean, on it, Brittney, you're one of them. James Quick, I met strictly online, now by extension, Alex, we've been meeting for the first time. And so you just meet a lot of friends. And recently there has been some cool opportunities come up on Twitter, possible job opportunities or people to meet or people to talk to about, next steps. And I think that's exactly what I wanted to use it for. If you teach enough on there and if you interact enough on there, it'll naturally show you the next step in your career just based on the people you talk to and the opportunities that are presented. And I'm starting to kind of come around to the idea of that I should take opportunities when I see them. That job at Dell that I talked about, I was there for almost 10 years. And that was my first job out of college. And so I'm starting to learn that was way too long of a stint at one company. And I want to be cognizant of opportunities and networking that present itself to me.
And not get complacent.
Totally. Yeah. And it was towards the end of Dell where I was like, I need to learn something. I need to do something. I got that itch to like just do more. And it really opened that door. And Adobe just helped me like walk in and flourish, which is really cool.
Yeah, I really like what you said about opportunities too. I feel like if you take opportunities where you can and make sure that you're doing them for the right reasons, but I feel like you can have chances that you might not have gotten before, and you never know who you're going to meet and what opportunity that is going to become. Like through James, like just being on Discord and meeting so many people, I've met James and Scott Galinsky and like several people that I never would have contacted, never would have talked to or communicated with. And now I feel like they're friends. Like I can just talk to them. And I mean, they're normal people, like, but I still feel like it's a special thing how you can meet people and just grow and connect with so many different people from all over the world.
Totally.
So we were kind of talking a little bit about like your social growth and getting into that, but I think what that always speaks to is just community. And I think you said it well. Like when we talk about all these different people that you start to meet and you realize like we're all just normal people and we're trying our best, and next one up to learn, we're there for you. And it's always been a very welcoming community in my experience. Has that kind of been your experience, Brad, of kind of coming into it later in your or middle of your career?
Yeah, I really haven't had any bad interactions. It's been really great. And I will say, you're saying once you establish your community, I got to say, I have a very small following. Not a lot of people follow me. James Quick always says Brad's like the guy who does awesome stuff that nobody knows about.
We'll have to keep pushing you out there. It'll be better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a lot going on with Adobe and stuff like that. How do you take the time to like build out the next side hustle? Is that something they let you kind of work on at work a little bit and you spend all of your nights doing it? What's that look like for you?
Well, to be honest, first, like we're recording this in the middle of the workday, so I'm not super upfront about this. I just kind of carve the time out that I need. So if somebody asks me to be a guest on a podcast, my answer is yes, and I carve that time out. And I hope at the end of the day, Adobe will be okay with this. And I record WebDev Weekly as well during work hours, and they never question me because at the end of the day, I think my output's high, my quality's high, my teamwork is high, communication is high. So I don't think it's a worry. But like you mentioned, it is a lot of time at night. So that's where I sit down and do my work. I have a wife, I have 2 kids, they're young kids, and so they're very hands-on. And once they go down at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, that's when I try to get stuff done. I usually spend, hour or two with the wife working out, hanging out, and then it's like back to the man cave, the computer room, to just either relax, but most of the time it's trying to write some code, trying to learn something new, trying to do something. It's hard to keep, I would say, like a prioritized to-do list for side projects and side hustles because it's a lot of random stuff. Some days it's just updating readmes, other days it's learning something new, other days it's trying to build new features, but it's all over the map. And sometimes you don't have anything driving you to the next thing. And it does kind of come down to whatever you feel like doing or whatever you're motivated to do. So it is really hard to pick the next thing that's going to add the most value.
Yeah, I think by doing all of the like side projects and things, companies like Adobe and companies that I've worked for, they see that you're learning so much anyways. Why prevent that? So they just look at it as kind of building a person out and making them more solid all around. So it's really good that way. I know I have kind of moments of, I'll call it OCD, but when I get locked in on something, like I will spend all night, all day, like that's all I'm thinking about, sort of thing. So it's tough to break away for sure on a side project. But I think one thing to add in there, like when you have that full-time day job too, it's kind of easier to go chase a rabbit, if you will, on like, hey, the Webpack stuff. Like, I want to go research this for a while and go take off and do it when like, I'm not going to make money off this. And if I'm like someone like Wes Boss, who just has his stuff going on, if they're just chasing rabbits and they're not like producing tutorials out the other side, or Scott, if he doesn't complete a tutorial every month, all of a sudden, like he's in trouble, right? So there's a little bit of niceness to have a full-time day job, I think, as well doing it, but it can provide its own challenges for sure.
Yeah, it goes up and down. Like I said, it's been pretty busy at work. We had a big release coming up June 22nd for Adobe Commerce, and at night, I just haven't been in the big time programming mode because my brain has been so focused during the daytime. So I've resorted to video games a decent amount lately. So,
what stack do you use at work?
Ooh, it's a great stack. It's React, TypeScript, GraphQL. We got some Storybook thrown in there. and Webpack, like custom Webpack configs for build tools, which I am advocating that we should switch over to Vite, however you pronounce it, because it really impressed me.
I know.
That's
I think
really
that's
cool.
the big thing right now. How do we pronounce it? Is it V? Is it Vite? Even you came out and said Vite, right?
I thought it was Vite. It was the French word for fast, and so I think it's I thought it was Vite.
I did too.
No one knows.
We just did a whole episode on it for WebDev Weekly. It's going to come out in a few weeks, and we said Vite
the whole time. I said Vite until Scott and Wes did the syntax episode on it, and I swear he said in that episode that Evan Yu said that it was pronounced Vite, and so now he's trying to switch saying to Vite. It's just one of those words.
Yep.
I think one of these days we'll figure it out. Do you find like Adobe and maybe customers you're working with are kind of all in on the cloud at this point and microservices and all that fun stuff?
Yes, 100%. Like I work in an interesting space in Adobe because I work on Adobe Commerce, which is formerly Magento. And if you're familiar with Magento, it's an e-commerce platform, but it's a PHP monolith. And so specifically my team is doing a lot of like kind of groundbreaking work for Magento to take that front end and make it more software as a service. You want to inject product recommendations or a fancier search experience, we're going to give you like a JavaScript widget to do so. And so we have to find out like how to integrate with Magento's backend, but provide like a very separate front end.
That's cool.
And so yeah, all the APIs and things backing that are all microservices hosted on, AWS. But then they still have to communicate to the Magento backend. So we're slowly moving towards a unified federated GraphQL server that speaks to all of our microservices that then talk to the Magento backend.
Yeah, that's very cool. Magento was always something we had to deal with or talk through when we're talking about. And so my previous company, we did AEM and put all of that in. And then it was the next phase of, do we go Magento? Do we not? And then they purchased it. It was like, oh my gosh, it was all over the place. So.
Yep. Yeah, we're starting to make some of those integrations. They purchased them about 2 years ago. So like now is about that time where we're starting to really collaborate. And I've gotten to do some cool projects that have been cross-cutting between, the old school Magento and the new school Adobe. Things like feature flagging. I implemented a pretty cool like React library that'll do feature flagging for us that communicates with Adobe's like feature flagging system.
Wow. I've always heard that's pretty extensive, so that's awesome.
Look, it's like Booleans as a service. That's essentially what feature flagging is, but it enables you to do some really cool stuff.
So I want to throw up your page real quick, just because I think you have all your good stuff on here, essentially. So you've got your blog, and I think you might be talking about this. Maybe.
Oh yeah.
And your projects in here. So you've got this blog, and then do you want to tell me what's dailytexascountry.com all about?
Yeah, Daily Texas Country. You can go to the website dailytexascountry.com. So I live in Texas. I love country music. Most of the time, I'm wearing a cowboy hat and like I'm dancing on the weekends and stuff, like two-stepping.
I cannot picture that.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. I should post a video one day on Facebook or Twitter so that people can see, that my web dev friends can see, But this is just a pure passion project. Every week I release a Whiskey Wednesday video where I listen to a country song, drink whiskey, and talk about it. And I built this website. It's a Gatsby website that just sources data from all over the place. It's got local markdown files. It's got YouTube videos. It's got Spotify playlists. And a little store, that I just kind of outsourced to Cotton Bureau. So
nice. Was that difficult to get this set up, or is it just easy to click and you're in?
Cotton Bureau is one of those ship on demand places, but they actually have very high quality t-shirts, which I think that's the difference between them and something like Teespring. Teespring doesn't seem to have as good of options, but Cotton Bureau I really, really love. And I buy my own products, but it's as simple as, uploading a PNG and you're basically good to go.
Very neat. And then I know Brittney was dying to ask you about this Hue SDK and how you got involved with that.
Yeah, so this all started when I tore my Achilles and was kind of stuck on the couch for like all of December and January, basically. And I had my laptop and I wanted to build out my like Twitch overlays a lot better. And so what I did was I wrote this Twitch chatbot that could control my Hue lights. And I needed a better, easier, nicer way to access the Hue API. And there was one SDK out there, but I didn't love it. Like, it didn't resonate with me, even though it worked. And I decided I'm just going to write my own. And so this project was really my way of learning how to do open source properly. Like, the code is a very small portion of open source. I took the idea into this project that I'm going to try to manage a community and help contributors and, do all that. So I've got Husky in there where it'll auto format your code on commit. It'll support all contributors, where if anybody contributes to the project, I can add them and you can see their faces in the README. And it's got, all these fancy badges, and it's written with TypeScript and GitHub Actions, and it's, automatically published to NPM. So lots of good stuff there, and lots of like community management.
Yeah, it's a great learning project for open source. That's really cool.
Does James use that in his stream too?
Yeah, I think I have a few people using the Hue SDK now to back their Twitch bots.
He has like a Christmas lights command or something that you can turn on.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't use Countdown. Is that another fun one to talk about?
Yeah, that was like my second major open source package that I tried to, again, go all in on, saying like, this is going to be well maintained. Same thing. It was in support of my Twitch channel. And before I start, there's a countdown screen. Yeah. And so I just made this React hook that would just deliver a countdown exactly how I wanted it to.
Nice.
Very cool. labman-cli?
One of these days, GitHub is going to add this feature to their GH CLI, but they haven't yet. So I'm very particular about my GitHub issue labels, and I love emojis. And so I made this little tool that would essentially copy or clone labels from one repo to another. So I have a repo,
nice.
github.com/Brad Garropy/ I think it's called labels. And all it is like the housing for the labels that I like to use. And I use that as a base to clone those labels from that repo to labels. Yeah, there it is. From this repo over to other repos. So if you like try to create an issue and then add a label.
Oops.
Yeah, issues there. Yep. Oh, and you might not be able to see them. I don't know. If you click labels, I'm not sure if you're able to add them or not. Yeah, that's like a me thing, I guess.
Yeah, cool.
Anyways, yeah, I've got special labels with colors and emojis and stuff.
Oh, that's neat. And I think we touched on Muphy, so lots of fun projects you have floating around out there, and then of course your WebDev Weekly. So pretty much, if you go to bradgarropy.com, which jealous that you can have that domain name, you can hook up everything that you're talking about these days. It looks like.
Yep. I have mine as a .com too.
I did a rebrand recently, or like just like a rehaul on the homepage here, because it didn't say what I did or post my stuff. And so this now feels a lot better. Like, these are the things that I do.
That Whiskey Wednesday back on your daily Texas country, you do that with GitHub Actions, right? I heard you talking about that on WebDev Weekly. How does that flow work with GitHub Actions? You do a lot with that, right?
Yeah. So Daily Texas Country just started as a Spotify playlist with like 1,200 songs. And then I wanted to make a Twitter bot that posted one song every day from that playlist, like a random song. And so I have all these actions in here that will like do my daily song tweet or do my weekly tweet of the playlist itself, I essentially just use the scheduled actions to just make cron jobs that do whatever I need it to do. They just call Netlify functions that'll interact with Twitter and Spotify APIs and post what I need to post.
Cool.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I found that GitHub Actions, out of all the CI/CD tools that I've ever used, is just so well integrated with your source code. It lives right next to it, and so easy to just do anything. Even if you just need a cron job, just use a GitHub action. It's free.
Yeah, I like how I'll call it cheap, I guess. how easily you can run these things too. Like you never run up on build time requirements and stuff like that.
No.
So
or even if you're, let's say you're starting to get your Netlify build minutes, kind of full, just offload your build process to GitHub Actions, and then use the Netlify CLI to publish, and boom, you just save yourself having to buy a Netlify account.
Yep, and Netlify is probably happy too because it eases off their servers. So
yep.
Cool. Well, unless you have anything else specifically on your side projects.
Man, no, we covered a lot, honestly. I do also stream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Brad Garropy. Like I said, things have been hectic at work, so I haven't been streaming too much, but I'm planning on getting back into it.
Nice.
Awesome. So I think it's time for Purrfect Picks.
Yes.
Brad, we'll let you go first.
Yeah, so
and I think you just put a review up for this too.
I did. Yeah, I wrote a blog post about this. With all the money I earned from my side projects, I actually took it and cashed it in, and I got this thing, this GoXLR. It's an audio mixer, and it's done through hardware instead of software. So I'm on Windows, and the best thing we had was this thing called the Voice Meter to manage a bunch of different audio channels and levels. And
not a fan of Voice Meter.
It really sucks. Yeah, it's not very good. A lot of times there's like crackling and things that happen to the virtual audio channels. So I said, I need to do this in hardware. And so this GoXLR was exactly what I needed. I've got these nice faders on the side. I can even do weird things with my voice, like turn it into a megaphone or like a robot and be really weird.
That is super cool for streaming.
Yeah. And so like they're just...
You have a Shure mic? Looks like we have the same one.
Yeah, this is the SM58.
58, yep. That's what I have too.
Yep. And it sounds great. I had a whole audio processor and all these different things, but I replaced it all with the GoXLR, and
nice.
It sounds...
I have a Scarlett Solo, and that's all I have mine hooked into right now. But
Yep.
Pretty good.
Yeah, this GoXLR replaced like 2 or 3 pieces of hardware, which was just awesome.
Wow.
And I previously had that Scarlett Solo as the interface and a couple other things in the chain, and this just does it all. So cool. And it integrates with the Stream Deck, where when you press a button to change scenes in OBS or whatever, you can change the profile on your GoXLR. So for instance, if I get up to use the restroom or something, I press one button and the GoXLR shuts off my mic and does all that kind of stuff.
Oh, nice.
I miss having my Stream Deck. I hope they support the Mac M1 finally.
Oh,
or the
man.
Apple hardware. So I had to send
know
one
that.
back. It was so choppy. I couldn't handle it. I'll have to look into that. That's good reminder. Brittney, I think you're up next, and forgive us. I think Brittney's having some internet issues. So
yeah, I'm having some connection issues today. So we'll see if I can get through this. But I've been diving into using HSL colors, and Una Kravitz, who does the CSS podcast, and I don't know, she's on a couple different podcasts. She works at, is it Chrome? On the Chrome developer team for the dev tools. Yeah, and she has this blog post, and it's got basically everything you need to know about using CSS variables with HSL, and you can set your variables, and then in each scope, you can change them. So by changing one thing, it changes another level. So you can like change the colors there, and it updates all of them.
That's cool.
I love that.
It's really cool, and it's super powerful, and I want to kind of dive in. I know we use Tailwind a lot. I kind of want to like start making my own design system, so I like keep learning these little bits and pieces here and there and getting there.
Like, I bet you could use like one CSS variable to set like a primary color where all the other colors are calculated off of it. That could be
That's
so cool.
that's what this post does. But I also want to be able to change like the alpha value. So when I hover, I want to be able to make it a different, like, I don't know, darker or lighter, and then have the alpha value when you do something else change. So just changing in an individual value within the HSLA would be awesome.
Yeah, this is so cool.
Yeah, I'm really bad at this stuff, so it's always great to like find a little page like this. So
And it's super complicated and mathy too. So it's complex, but it's really cool if you can get it working.
Yeah. Awesome. Your second pick?
My second pick is Startup. I don't know. I'd never heard about this show, and it's all on Netflix now. There's 3 seasons there, and I think it ended in like 2018, but it was a pretty good show. It's not like Silicon Valley. It's more the business side of like startups and the enterprisey stuff, but it was a pretty good watch. So suggest that.
I burned through like the first season once it
Did you?
released on Netflix. I really liked it.
Yeah.
Is it very like software based or?
It's really not software based at all. Like she's
Okay.
the coder and she does the coding, but they don't show a lot of the coding, and it's not really that side of it. Like Silicon Valley was more kind of the tech nerdy side, but this is really more about like business. They're business people and they go out and they like have to like finagle like these deals and things.
It's
There's
like
like a
suits
whole
for the startup industry.
there's like a whole social aspect to it too, because you have a person that's kind of in like the Haitian gang area,
Yeah.
and then you have her who maybe more middle class, and then she's a coder, but then you have Brody who's like upper class, but his dad has issues, so it's kind of all over the place, but it is really cool how they make it happen no matter what. So I loved it. I gotta finish it. My first pick, I just finally decided I love my green screen, even though it's not behind me right now.
I'm like, you got your stuff behind you. I don't know, like logos behind you.
Yeah, my logos are still there because they're Sticker Mule stickers on the wall. Unfortunately, though, we're packing to move, so I don't even have my backlights or anything right now. But I had to pick this green screen because I really like it, and it's been easy to use. And I'm hoping at the new house, my lighting will actually, I won't have to edit as much in Premiere Pro all the time when I'm doing that stuff. So I threw that out there. I thought that would be a fun pick.
I gotta ask, you think the green screen is worth it? I kind of like having the vibe of the room around me, you know.
Yeah, so
but
I think for like the podcasts and like videos and stuff like that, I don't, because I agree. I like people being able to see kind of into the room and stuff like that. But so some of the videos I'm doing like an AWS one where I'm like picking stuff up, like a whatever Amplify logo, and I'm shaking it. And for that, I kind of need green screen for. So
for like the thumbnails, basically.
Yeah,
I thought you might be throwing that up there as shade to me because I did the cheapo like green screen behind me.
No, but that's funny if you want to talk about it. There's a danger there's a danger with cheap green screens. If you ever notice, like right above Brittney's head, there's a little shiny piece of tape. So
okay, there it is.
What do you say? It's so tough.
I made my light. If I made my light really bright, you can see it. So I did poster board and taped it with clear tape, but the tape is shiny and reflective. So the tape hits the lights and it doesn't go green anymore.
My second pick, which these people use better green screens than we do. The Nevers. This has been just a fantastic watch for me. So it's a little bit of fantasy mixed with kind of Victorian London essentially, and it's been really, really good. I think I am 2 episodes behind of what's released, so I'm kind of eager to see where it goes. But I love the writing. I love like all the cinematography in this one. So if you happen to have HBO or you want to do HBO Max for like a month for $15 or whatever it is, check this
That's
one
what I
out.
was gonna say. I haven't had HBO since the last season of Westworld came out, but I might need to get it again.
Yeah, it's so cool now that like with streaming so popular, you don't have to get locked into a package. So
Yeah,
if
that is
you
awesome.
find something for like this, you can burn through it in a month or whatever.
I just signed up for HBO Max like 2 days ago, and it like opened a whole door of like new stuff to watch. So
Yeah.
it's dangerous. I'm just catching up on Rick and Morty, and then I'll find the next thing.
I feel like I'm getting close to the end of Netflix, so I may need to like branch out again.
Yeah.
We just finished Lucifer today.
Oh yeah, I need to finish that. I'm on
So good.
the first of the new episodes where they sit down to dinner.
Be prepared to bawl. I don't know if you're. I'm sensitive, but last 2 episodes.
Well, Brad, thanks so much for coming on and sitting down with us, chat about kind of side projects you have going on. I think it's always encouraging for people getting into it, just to hear different stories and how people are doing things. So really appreciate it.
Hey, thank y'all for having me. I had a great time.
I appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
We'll have to have you on again after you're a little further in your journey.
Sounds good.
Hopefully everybody could hear me.
All right, thanks, y'all.
All right, see ya later.
Bye.